Hello friends, welcome to this lecture of computer graphics. In this lecture, I am going to discuss on the topic calligraphic or random display devices. When we talk the display device as random, there are certain points that we have to remember. This kind of display devices can be known by various terms. First, it is also known as vector display device, stroke display device, etc. These are the terms used for random display device, and we will talk about why we basically call random display devices as vector and stroke display devices. When we talk about random or calligraphic display devices, the first and foremost thing that we have to discuss is that here we basically use line as basic drawing primitive. That means in order to draw the picture on the screen, this technique basically make use the line as a drawing primitive. And sometimes we also say that this technique make use of line drawing algorithm to display picture on screen. So it is very important that in this technique, line drawing algorithm is basically involved to display the picture on screen. So let's suppose this picture is going to be drawn on screen. So here it can be easily seen that in order to draw this picture on screen, the system basically made use of electron gun in random display device to draw the picture through a set of lines, and there is no particular order to draw this line. That's why, since there is no particular order to draw the picture, this is known as random display device. This is known as random display device. And since we can see that while drawing this picture, the line which are used shows certain direction, and when we draw a picture, this is particularly drawn along a particular direction of the line. That's why it is known as vector display device, because when we come across towards this concept of vector, we simply means direction. Moreover, what is the meaning of stroke? So stroke simply implies small lines. So here we make use of small lines to draw the picture. Now let us understand other characteristics of this kind of display devices. So what are the basic characteristics of random display devices? Let us check them. In random display devices, we make use of line as basic drawing primitive, that means out of many lines, this technique, or we can say this system basically selects best possible line in random to display picture on screen. So that is the first characteristic that we have discussed so far. The second characteristic is that it has short, persistent phosphor coated screen. So when we say short phosphor persistent screen, it implies that after removing the electron gun, implicitly the time for which the electron glow on the screen is short as compared to the DVST. In DVST, we had discussed that the electron glow for the longer period on the screen once the electron device is removed implicitly. So the picture has a capability, the picture in DVST has the capability to sustain on the screen for a longer period, but this is not the case in the random display device. As a result of this, flickering is experienced while picture is displayed on screen. That means the picture would not be shown as a stable on the screen. So in order to avoid this problem, we basically make use of the concept that is called refresh rate. It is a very important concept. Refresh rate basically implies So it is a very important term that we basically use with regard to random or calligraphic display device. In order to avoid the flickering of picture on screen, refresh rate implies that this technique basically redraw the picture about a certain number of times so that a flicker-free display can be displayed on the per unit area of the screen. So refresh rate is defined as a number of times a picture can be redrawn on screen to provide flicker-free display per unit area on screen. So the standard refresh rate to avoid flickering, or you can say a standard refresh rate to display flicker free image on screen is basically 30 frame per second. FPS stands for frame per second. So what actually the frame, let us discuss that. Frame or buffer is basically discussed with regard to the concept of random and calligraphic display devices. Let us check what actually the frame or buffer is there in this concept. So we basically make use of the term refresh buffer or frame buffer. So refresh buffer or frame buffer is basically So when we say refresh buffer is also known as frame buffer, and it is basically a storage area in the system to store certain display programs corresponding to each line that are read by display processor in order to display the picture on the screen. So do remember that a refresh buffer or the frame buffer is a special kind of the storage area in random display devices which basically contains certain programs, and these programs are basically correspond to the line which is used to draw the picture on the screen. So the the programs which corresponds to the drawing of each lines is basically stored in this refresh of frame buffer, which are going to be read by a device that is known as display processor. That display processor basically read the program and draw the picture on the screen. So that is the idea about calligraphic or random display devices.